This is the Ken Hudnall Show, coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas, gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is August the 1st, 213th day of the year. Just 152 days remain to the year's over with, and we'll start a new year. Holidays observances, International Beer Day. Bubba Jay's going to love that. National Spider-Man Day. Swinging between skyscrapers and stopping villains and saving lives. The web-slinging hero never fails to amaze. World Wide Web Day. National Girlfriend's Day. Colorado Day. Nestled in the heart of the Rockies, this state offers outdoor adventures from mountain hikes to scenic drives. National Women Astronomers Day. People who unveil the cosmic mysteries and navigate celestial realms. National Spritz Day. A bubbly, refreshing concoction with a zestful twist. National Pinball Day. Oh, I used to love to play pinball. National Raspberry Cream Pie Day. Heavy cream, sugar, vanilla, and of course raspberries make the perfect raspberry cream pie filling. World Lung Cancer Day. Pachamama Day. It's a vibrant celebration dedicated to honoring Mother Earth, a central figure in Andean culture. Pachamama means Mother Earth in the Quechua language, viewed as the life-giving force responsible for nature's abundance. There are symbolic rituals such as burying offerings like food and cocoa leaves and drinks. People give back to the sustenance provided by the land while asking for continued protection and fertility for their crops. I've seen a lot of interesting celebrations as I've been in a number of countries in the world. National Water Balloon Day. Fill up one of those colorful spears and throw it at somebody. World Scout Scarf Day. Dig out your old girl or Boy Scout scarf and show your pride for this generation's old tradition. Play Ball Day. Yorkshire Day. From the country or city of Yorkshire, join in on the events that commemorate all the local traditions from food, the military practices, and more. Merino Day. Well, what you said, there we go. It's a once annual occasion when enthusiasts around the world happily uncork their bottles and celebrate. This special day pays a tribute to the Albarino grape. It's a beautiful Spanish white grape. It gives a distinct flavor to some of the finest wines in the world. And despite its roots in the Spanish countryside, it enjoys a worldwide cult following. Respect for Your Parents Day. International Child Free Day. Startup Day across America. It's a dynamic event celebrating the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship across the country. Homemade Pie Day. National Mountain Climbing Day. National Planner Day. Get your planner organized and up to date. Brahman Pie Day. Brahman Pie Day. Can't talk. Known as the homemade pie capital of Minnesota, Braham transforms into a bustling hub of excitement every first Friday of August. Town buzzes with activities ranging from pie baking contests to quirky art shows, all celebrating the delightful world of pies. National Minority Donor Awareness Day. International Can It Forward Day. Rounds resounding day. Join forces with friends and family, engage in one of the oldest forms of cooperative singing, the round, such as Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Swiss National Day. Lughnasadh marks the arrival of the harvest. Makes a time of gratitude and gathering. Yeah, after the god Lugh. Freshly picked grains and fruits remind everybody about nature's generosity. Turns the fields into symbols of hard work and reward. National Promise to Care Day. The National Mahjong Day. Crayfish Party. World Breastfeeding Week. National Fishing Month, which goes on through August 31st. Flower Fair, which goes on through Sunday, August the 10th. Fall and Rock Festival. This is an interesting one. It was previously known as Woodstock Festival of Poland. Stands as one of Europe's largest free music festivals. Every year it draws massive crowds eager to experience the vibrant blend of music and arts and community spirits. Not to mention getting higher than a kite. It began July 31st, goes on through Saturday, August the 2nd. National Marine Week. National Twins Day. Festival of British Archaeology. World Parks Week. International Clown Week. You want to see a lot of clowns? Go to Congress. Blue Butterfly Count. Famous people born in the state. Jason Momoa, who I first saw in Stargate. Well, on that note, let us go and see what stories are in the news. Well, they've discovered who killed the two hikers in Devil's Den Park in Arkansas. Is a teacher, and Andrew began, charged with capital murder of the married couple. 28-year-old school teacher. He was arrested at a barber shop in Springdale at 4:57 p.m. on Wednesday. Officials said he was getting a haircut at the time he got arrested. Charged with 2 counts of capital murder in connection with the killings of Clinton David Brink, 43, and Kristen Amanda Brink, 41. Found dead on the walking trail at Devil's Den. Their 2 daughters weren't hurt, being cared for by family members. And it's been announced that McGann confessed to the crime, and there was available DNA evidence to confirm his involvement. Apparently, he wanted to kill the husband. The wife got in the way, so he just killed both of them. Well, Colbert confronted Kamala Harris about who's leading the Democratic Party. And as has been her typical response to direct questions, she refused to answer. She said there are lots of leaders. And that's why the Democratic Party's in the toilet. There's nobody really in charge. She came on his show plugging her new book, 107 Days, about the 2024 presidential campaign. And from everything I can find out about it, it's going to be a typical word salad that we've come to expect from Kamala Harris. The vicious beatdown in Cincinnati didn't even make the 3 major broadcast networks' news reports. That beatdown left a woman unconscious and a man severely injured. that it still hadn't been covered. Media Research Council's Newsbusters analyzed ABC's Good Morning America and World News Tonight, CBS News Mornings and Evening News, and NBC's Today and Nightly News, with a single mention of the event through Wednesday, July 30th. And a subsequent Fox News analysis found the fight wasn't covered by any of the network shows on Thursday. Now, ABC and NBC's websites had some coverage, but not a lot. 5 people were charged after the vicious altercation early Saturday morning. Disturbing video of the brawl shows a man wearing a polo shirt being attacked by multiple assailants who proceeded to kick and stomp on him while he was on the ground. When the woman tried to intervene, she got knocked cold by a man. Photographs of the female victim, known only as Holly, show with a black eye and a bloody lip. Well, Americans on vacation spots in other countries are going to see more military than margaritas this summer. Operation Summer Vacation 2025 launches as cartel violence threatens Cancun and Riviera Maya visitors. There are heavily armed patrols in these vacation hotspots to try to protect the tourism and the visitors. In response to escalating cartel violence and crimes against travelers, Mexican governments deployed more than 7,000 troops and security personnel to try to safeguard the country's most popular vacation zones. It's been going on since 2021 in Mexico. Colorado deputies violated a new state law when they shared information with federal immigration agents. Mesa County deputies Alexander Zwink and Eric Olson were placed on unpaid leave after they shared information with ICE after a traffic stop. You know, when these states think they can defy the feds on things like this, something's got to give. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser sued Mesa County Sheriff's Deputy Alexander Zwink last week after his cooperation with federal immigration agents on a drug task force was exposed during a Brazilian college student's arrest for an expired visa. When addressing the incident on Thursday, Mesa County Sheriff Todd Rawls said Caroline Diaz-Gonzalez, a 19-year-old nursing student, was pulled over by Zwick for a traffic stop on June 5th. She was driving too close to a semi-truck. She was released with a warning after about 20 minutes. Federal immigration authorities stopped her and arrested her shortly after that, based on information they apparently got from Zwick. Well, Trump wants to get stock trading ban done. A lot of members of Congress use inside information to improperly trade stock. President Trump and Senator Josh Hawley got into it over the bill. Trump wants to ban stock trading among top government officials. I mean, when you got people like Nancy Pelosi worth over $150 million, and a lot of it came from stock trades, you can't tell me she didn't have inside information. Well, it's been determined aging hits a dramatic turning point at one specific number, according to scientists. A study of 13 human tissues shows substantial changes in one particular decade, and that is at the age of 50. At that point, according to researchers in China, Tissues and organs begin to age at a faster pace. Well, Zoran Mamdani, having to do damage control. His blatant flip-flop on defunding police has been ripped as political theater. He says he no longer supports defunding the police in a Wednesday press conference. He's long criticized the New York Police Department, calling for it to be defunded in 2020. He's also called it racist and said the department's strategic response group ought to be disbanded. Well, Paris city officials say 2025 may rank as one of the busiest years for travel. And the locals are ranting their neighborhoods now look like Disneyland as post-Olympics tourism surges. All across Europe, officials and popular vacation destinations are grappling with the ravages of over-tourism. Last year, over 3 million people traveled to Paris, France to witness the 2024 Olympic Games. About 230,000 Americans attended the Olympics, accounting for the largest group of foreign visitors, according to official website Paris. And locals are outraged at being overwhelmed. Well, a New York City cleaning lady had a face-to-face encounter with the gunman that went into the NFL building. Sabiji Novovic says she put her hands up and told the gunman, "I'm the cleaning lady," and then went and hid in the closet. She's now talking out about her terrifying encounter, saying she was so scared and hid in the closet for hours till the police arrived. Now, once the shooting started, I doubt it took hours for a response, but she said Shane Tamura, the gunman, came off the elevator, pointed his rifle straight at her, and started firing through the glass reception door on the 33rd floor of 345 Park Avenue on Monday night. She said, he started shooting around me, and I put my hands up and said, "I'm the cleaning lady, I'm the cleaning lady." The statement was released by her union, the 32BJ SEIU. And she realized he comes with a machine gun. He's not gonna know who I am. He's gonna shoot no matter what. So she ran down the hallway and locked herself in a closet and started praying. Well, U.S. job growth is cooling amid growing economic uncertainty. Department of Labor released its closely watched July job report. Now, the economy did add jobs in July, but at a slower pace in the last several months, as uncertainty over economic conditions continues. Well, the San Jose State University transgender volleyball scandal is heating up, and the White House has gotten involved now. But let's see how that plays out. Surveillance video at a mall shows a 26-year-old man grabbing a toddler from a mall play area before he got arrested for kidnapping. Parents tracked down the suspect on the second floor and rescued their daughter. This was in Fairfax County, Virginia. Toddler left the indoor play area at about 11:45 in the morning. Allegedly grabbed by 26-year-old Andres Caceres Jardin. Parents of the young girl found Jardin on the second floor of the mall and got their daughter back. According to the police, Jardin fled the mall but was arrested a short time later at the extended stay hotel in Chantilly, Virginia. allegedly stole a car from an auto shop before he went to the mall to abduct a little girl. People got to remember there are cameras everywhere. Well, according to Sean Hannity, there's been new evidence on the Trump-Russia hoax that could be more explosive than anything seen before. Looks like it was a joint operation initially started by Hillary Clinton, supported by George Soros, and then Obama and his folks got involved. They were determined to get him. Well, Tennessee authorities are hunting for a 29-year-old suspect in a quadruple murder linked to an abandoned baby. Austin Robert Drummond is wanted for first-degree murder after an infant was found in a car seat on a random person's lawn. There's a manhunt underway right now. The Dyer County Police Department said Thursday that 29-year-old Austin Robert Drummond killed James M. Wilson, 21, Adriana Williams, 20, Courtney Rose, 38, and Braden Williams, 15. Bodies were found in Tiptonville, Tennessee. And as I say, police believe the quadruple homicide is linked to the abandonment of an infant that was found in a car seat on the lawn of a random person's house. Witness saw the car seat on the lawn and called 911. Now, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is involved in the investigation. America First Legal filed a civil rights complaint against the Texas Roadhouse over its DEI programs. Finally, the folks screwed by the DEI are standing up and demanding their rights. According to reports, the restaurant chain uses race and gender criteria in hiring and board appointments. That is a definite no-no right now. Well, the left is still bouncing off the walls about Sydney Sweeney's jeans ad. Even Vice President Vance has gotten involved in it now. President Trump is taking a jab at a GOP senator. Senator Susan Collins voted against the Trump-backed One Big Beautiful Bill Act and rescission measure last month. And Trump urged Republicans to vote the exact opposite of how she votes. We got some crazy people in office, and the people that sent them there are even crazier. Well, Florida has broken a 50-year-old execution record with the 9th death sentence carried out this year. Edward Zakraszewski killed his wife and 2 young children with a crowbar, rope, and a machete in 1994. He's 60 years old at the time of his execution, pronounced dead at 6:12 p.m. at the Florida State Prison near Stark after a 3-drug injection, which consists of a sedative, a paralytic, and a drug that stops the heart. And the last words of Zakraszewski was, "I want to thank the good people of the Sunshine State for killing me in the most cold, calculated, clean, humane, efficient way possible. I don't have any complaints." Well, an air traffic controller should have warned a plane that went down of an Army helicopter's ahead of a fatal DC crash, according to the FAA. The FAA official confirms the controller failed to warn the commercial plane crew about an approaching Army helicopter. This crash took place in January. 67 people died in that crash. Linda McMahon pulls back the curtain on Trump's plan to dismantle the Department of Education. She's meeting with governors from both parties as the Trump administration carries out its plan to dismantle that department. Despite Democrats protesting, of course, the plan is moving ahead. Returning education to the states is a nonpartisan issue. And the education I'm seeing students get today versus what I got, 50 years ago? Night and day. The View is facing mockery for booking 102 left-leaning guests and 0 conservatives in 2025. Barbara Walters would have been outraged. It's being called a partisan echo chamber after a study revealed the show had only left-leaning guests. According to Fox News contributor Guy Benson, it's an insane asylum now. It's a notoriously anti-Trump show. It was the subject of a study from Media Research Center's Newsbusters. Let's see. There's been a new study to determine the best low-carb beers that are also big on flavor. Health-conscious millennials and Generation Zs are driving a shift toward flavorful blues that don't compromise on taste. Declassified documents reveal Clinton campaign's role in the Trump-Russia narrative. She spared no expense trying to destroy Trump. Well, Michelle Obama's dying podcast is taking aim at Stephen A. Smith's critique at modern sports programming. Chicago's mayor has a progressive tax plan to tax the rich, tax the whites. Well, the Daily Beast has pulled a story alleging Melania Epstein connection after lawyers dispute the framing. Michael Wolff claimed that Trump's wife was introduced through a modeling agent connected to Jeffrey Epstein. The theory by many so-called journalists is say what you want because they're not going to spend the money to fight you. Well, Pentagon's pulled troops out of L.A. and Newsom says the whole thing was Trump's political theater. The whole time people are afraid to walk the streets. Okay, and finally, a bipartisan moment took place in Congress as Senator Warren, Pocahontas, went to sit down and fell, wound up in the floor, turned over the desk. Alrighty, we've been talking about a lot of UFO/UAP related stories. We got a few more today. It turns out when the Air Force announced there'd be no more UFO studies in 1969 after Project Blue Book was closed down, that was a lie. Yes, there were no more UFO stories or investigations because they changed the name to UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. That was respectable. And let's not forget the CIA's Weird Desk that we talked about yesterday. Now, another way that the Air Force is hiding UFO investigations is through black budget funding and the hiring of contractors and discoveries made under the cover of a black budget. When the Blue Book closed its doors in 1969, the Air Force officially declared the UFO problem solved. Officially. No threat, no flying saucers, demanding more taxpayer dollars. But that wasn't true. The investigation did continue. It just shifted its focus underground, so to speak. The black budget, a complex network of classified line items, is the conduit for the money. Facilitates the transfer of money through shell companies and innocuous project codes and compartmented special access programs. You have to understand that the same hidden financial channels that funded stealth bombers and spy satellites now finance the government's most secret unidentified aerial phenomena project. Now, in the early 1970s, the cultural mood around flying saucers flipped almost overnight. 2 decades of magazine covers showing silver disc and bug-eyed aliens suddenly met a growing array of men and women whose business cards read skeptic. Engineers, journalists, astronomers, and stage magicians held the belief that bad science and wishful thinking had seduced the public. With slide projectors and sharp wits and academic credentials, they set out to puncture what they called the UFO myth. I'm thinking about a talk I heard by the amazing Randy, a stage magician, who wrote a book or two proving there were no UFOs. Now, in actuality, having been somebody who actually shot at one, I can assure you there are UFOs. You can read some of my books that you can find on Amazon. Look up Ken Hudnall. The very first book I ever wrote was The Occult Connection, UFOs, Secret Societies, and Ancient Gods. And the reports that I found, unbelievable. Unless I forget Beyond Roswell, which we filmed the first season of a TV series on that. You know, at the center of the skeptic pushback was CSICOP, CSICOP, Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. Today it calls itself CSI, Center for Inquiry's Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. But I'm going to keep calling it CSICOP, because that's what the newspapers used in the 70s and 80s called it. This organization was formed in 1976 by philosopher Paul Kurtz, magician James the Amazing Randi, psychologist Ray Hyman, Marcello Truzzi, and science writers like Isaac Asimov and Carl Sagan. They aim to bring laboratory-grade rigor to any extraordinary claim, be it psychic spoon-bending, Bigfoot footprints, faith healing, and of course, ubiquitous unidentified flying objects. Now, to understand why this effort gained such traction, we have to look at 1973. That year, the U.S. experienced what newspapers called the Year of the Humanoids. Sightings spiked coast to coast, talk shows booked alleged abductees nightly. Polls show that more than half of Americans believe UFOs are real and possibly alien. Meanwhile, Project Blue Book, the Air Force official study, is shut down 4 years before with a shrug, leaving a void now filled by self-styled field investigators and contactee cults. And into that vacuum, you had Phil Klass, an Aviation Week editor who became the era's most famous debunker. Now, I've read a lot of his material. Debunking, he didn't. Confusing, he did. His methods were brutal but simple. Demanded hard data, cite aerospace engineering manuals, and publish every flaw he found, no matter how small, with sarcastic flair. He shredded the famous 1965 Exeter, New Hampshire case by showing the lights matched a KC-97 refueling plane. He called the Pascagoula abduction case a hypnosis-assisted fantasy. Critics says he ordered on personal attack. Fans called him the guardian of rationality. In any case, reporters now contact class as soon as a high-profile sighting makes the news, just like they do with eyewitnesses, especially with Cletus and his "it looks like a booger with skinny legs." Well, Syscop institutionalized the lone wolf model in a coordinated campaign. He came out with a magazine, The Skeptical Inquirer. Had such cover stories as why UFOs are not serious science and the Gulf Breeze hoax exposed. They built a phone tree of astronomers on standby to answer journalists' questions. When a farmer snapped a blurry saucer photo, Syscop dispatched a physicist with photogrammetry software and then published a step-by-step debunking. Well, they had certain very basic rules that they followed. Number one, no claims immune to scrutiny. If somebody says a craft defied physics, prove it with instruments, not anecdotes. Number two, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This was a line made famous by Carl Sagan. Billions and billions of stars. And the burden of proof rested on the claimant. Skeptics didn't need to prove the negative. Believers had to prove the positive. And the committee's tone wouldn't always draw academic restraint. Quite often it was very cutting. James Randi once opened a lecture by bending a kitchen fork with obvious hand pressure. Then asked the crowd why they were unimpressed by what television audience hailed as psychic metal bending. Now, of course, this type of showmanship translated well to UFO debates. Makes the extraordinary seem ordinary and the mysterious mundane. And network newsrooms loved Syscops because editors suddenly had an official science voice to balance sensational headlines. The National Enquirer, that bastion of truth and justice, ran a headline, "Pilot Sees Giant Mothership." CBS Evening News called up Syscop for a counterpoint. Newspaper-style guidelines began inserting phrases like self-described and alleged when referencing UFO witnesses. Linguistic red flags signaling official doubt. Now, the feedback loop, public citing, sensational coverage, Syscop rebuttal, skeptical follow-up story, shifted popular consensus. Gallup polls show belief in extraterrestrial craft dropped from 57% in 1978 to 46% by 1990. UFO clubs closed down. Close encounter conventions shrank. Debunkers hadn't erased the phenomena, they just knocked it off its pedestal. Now, the rise of professional skepticism carried collateral damage. While it fleshed out obvious hoaxes, it also hardened institutional aversion. Young physicists considering a thesis on atmospheric plasma that might explain some sightings thought twice. Grant committees pointed to Syscop articles claiming the mystery was solved. In effect, there was a shift from naive acceptance to reflexive dismissal, which made it more difficult for legitimate anomalies to secure laboratory time. One telling example is the 1980 Rendlesham Forest incident near two NATO air bases in England. Multiple U.S. Air Force personnel reported lights descending into the woods. Metallic craft impression on the ground, radiation spikes, audio recorded in real time. Syscop investigators arrived and said it was a lighthouse beam, misidentification of bright stars, and local pranksters. But the British military defense files, declassified decades later, show their officers remained puzzled. Nonetheless, mainstream science shrugged, cited Syscop's verdict, and moved on. Well, now, a number of factors actually amplified Syscop's microphone. Number one, the Vietnam-era mistrust of official stories. While Americans doubted government transparency, they craved expert guidance. Skeptics offered scientific authority without any smell of secrecy. Exploding higher education rates. Population now armed with college science credits felt empowered to ask for lab results rather than campfire tales. Media and economics. A skeptical counter voice offered dramatic tension essential for ratings and protected outlets from libel over hoax participation. And of course, we had the Cold War context. The idea that a lot of the sightings were secret U.S. and Soviet prototypes fit geopolitical narratives a whole lot better than aliens did. But even at the height of skepticism, cracks began to appear. Class couldn't fully dismiss radar visual cases where multiple sensors agreed that there was something there. And SysCop had its own internal disagreements, especially with co-founder Marcello Truzzi, who warned against pathological skepticism. Showed not all questions were closed. Some committee members quietly admitted that a small residue of reports defied explanation, but argued that science shouldn't chase the 5% until the 95% was settled. And Navy pilots began to whisper about new unsettling encounters off the East Coast in the 1990s, which caused these cracks to widen. For the moment, though, the professional debunkers had shifted the default public posture from "I want to believe" to "prove it." Well, that pivot actually matters because every modern disclosure battle, whether it's budgets or hearings or whistleblower protections, takes place in the shadow of SysCop cast. This group taught journalists to ask for chain of custody documents, taught scientists to demand raw radar files, and taught lawmakers that extraordinary implies expensive. When you view that legacy as an overdue break on credulity over a chokehold and over an inquiry, it's the water every new witness has to swim in, even Cletus and his human-sized booger with skinny legs. We've also got abduction narratives and pop culture that tries to keep the UFO flame alive. And despite SysCop's best efforts, a handful of high strangeness cases keep the defense establishment from writing the subject off entirely. The skeptics emerged victorious in numerous battles, but the conflict of what lingers in our skies remains far from being resolved. By the 1970s, UFO debate drifted from radar rooms to living rooms. New headline was no longer lights in the sky, but it was people who said they'd been inside those lights. Newspapers called them abductees. Late night talk shows gave them prime airtime. And a very different conversation was unfolding in psychology departments, where researchers tried to explain the same claims without invoking extraterrestrials. And this clash, personal testimony versus laboratory data, became the fulcrum on which public belief teetered for over 20 years. Well, the first modern abduction narrative to grab national attention surfaced in 1961, but hit mainstream a decade later. And that was the Betty and Barney Hill story, where a mixed-race couple from New Hampshire described losing 2 hours on a lonely highway and later under hypnosis recalled a craft, gray beings, and medical probes. Their account was serialized in Look magazine, and John Fuller wrote a 1966 bestseller called The Interrupted Journey. It set the template. Bright lights, missing time, small humanoids, examinations, and return. Then we had a gentleman I know well, Travis Walton, in 1975. He was on a logging crew in Snowflake, Arizona. Watched a blue beam knock Walton off his feet, and he vanished for 5 days. Reappeared disoriented and dehydrated. Polygraph results were mixed, but the televised interviews were cinematic gold. Hollywood snapped up the rights. A movie called Fire in the Sky premiered in 1993. And the notion that it could happen to anybody seeped deeper into pop culture. And in 1987, Whitley Strieber, a novelist, released a book called Communion. first-person account of nocturnal visitors with black liquid eyes. The cover, a charcoal gray figure with almond eyes, became an instant icon. Bookstores filed it under nonfiction. Skeptics called it horror fiction with a marketing twist. Still, Strieber's Communion sold 2 million copies. Surveys by the Roper organization claimed that as many as 4 million Americans might have experienced missing time or intrusive nighttime visitors. When I've mentioned before, I used to speak at Roswell for over 10 years until those who thought they were the end-all be-all took control of the board, and I wasn't wanted because my book sold. I've got the figure. It's a gray with the big black liquid eyes. That I would sit in the back seat, one arm resting on the edge of the window. And when I went through the checkpoints that the Border Patrol has set up in this area, it used to blow their minds. Everybody wanted to see him. Then we've got abduction researchers like Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. They employed hypnotic regression, a technique where subjects placed in a relaxed state try to recall buried memories. Hopkins reported hundreds of consistent details, implanted tracking devices, reproductive procedures, and hybrid children. To believers, the convergence was proof. To critics, it suggested suggestion, since hypnosis is highly sensitive to leading questions. Well, psychologists eyed the trend with concern. If aliens were scooping up citizens in bedrooms and logging them in secret, conventional science had missed a monumental phenomenon. And if it wasn't happening, something inside the human mind could generate experiences so vivid people would tremble while describing them. So academic grants began to flow again, not to study aliens, but to study human memory. Elizabeth Loftus, a cognitive psychologist famous for her work on false memories, demonstrated people could recall entire fabricated events when interviewers introduced details. Her courtroom testimony changed how eyewitness testimony is treated. She argued that hypnotic regression is a memory minefield. Relaxed brain becomes highly suggestive, eager to please the hypnotist's cues. Then you had another thread that came from sleep researchers. 1986, psychologist David Hufford cataloged worldwide reports of sleep paralysis with hallucinations. Body's immobile during REM sleep while the mind is half awake, producing a terrifying sense of presence, pressure on the chest, even floating sensations. Patients across cultures reported shadowy figures, bright lights, and buzzing vibrations. Same psychological markers found in a lot of abduction stories. Neuroscientists later captured the phenomena as on EEG readings showing the brain flip-flopping between REM patterns and wakefulness. And then we got post-traumatic stress disorder researchers who weighed in next. Psychiatrist John Mack at Harvard listened to abductees and observed PTSD-like symptoms, nightmares, hypervigilance, and genuine terror. He didn't dismiss their accounts. No, instead he suggested the events were experientially real, even if not physically verifiable, maybe touching a transpersonal realm. Harvard convened a rare peer review of Mack's work. He did keep his post as a teacher, but the incident highlighted academia's discomfort. Outright dismissal felt unscientific. Outright endorsement risked reputation meltdown. I had a chance for a long talk with Mack. I'd gone to his book signing, and the store, conveniently enough, had forgotten to order his books. I had one that I'd gotten someplace else, and he autographed it for me. We had a long discussion about UFOs. He had actually read one of mine, which I found fascinating. While abduction stories featured complex craft interiors and telepathic dialogue, lab studies offer neurological models. REM intrusion, hypnopompic hallucinations, that's visions upon waking, and temporal lobe lability, brain region prone to vivid experiences. There were controlled experiments at the University of New Mexico that created feelings of floating by using mild magnetic fields on the temporal lobes. which mimic parts of abduction stories not needing to leave the lab. But the witnesses' convictions, even after all this, remained unshaken. Polygraph tests, though done not courtroom proof, often showed strong physiological arousal when abductees recalled events. Critics counted that polygraphs detect stress, not truth. An emotionally honest false memory looks like the same on the needle as the fact. And then television amplified the divide. Unsolved mysteries reenacted Walton's beam of light. Daytime talk shows paraded traumatized guests. Primetime dramas like The X-Files turned abduction themes into serialized thrillers. Ratings soared. Meanwhile, Scientific American ran sober articles on sleep paralysis. Skeptical Inquirer dissected regression transcripts, highlighting leading questions such as, what did they do next? Which presumes that they actually existed. Well, as you might guess, public opinion split into two camps. A 1990 Gallup poll found 27% of Americans believe aliens have visited Earth. Among college psychology majors, which were surveyed that same year, only 3% considered abductions credible. That gap underscored a widening trust issue: eyewitness testimony versus institutionalized expertise. During this same time frame, no abduction case produced conclusive physical evidence that withstood independent lab scrutiny. No traceable implant with otherworldly isotopes, no verified radar track matching the reported timeline, no video free of ambiguous light artifacts. But the patterns in testimony, bright light, paralysis, missing time, map cleanly onto known neurological events. For many clinicians, this was decisive. But there were two caution flags that still remained. First, sleep paralysis models explain night bedroom encounters. The struggle of multi-witness daylight cases like Walton's and the Brooklyn Bridge incident in 1989, where multiple observers claimed external views of the abduction. And neurology doesn't address the small cluster of reports involving ground corroboration, burn marks on soil, electromagnetic interference, simultaneous animal reactions. Despite the small number of reports, these anomalies encourage a minority of researchers to explore explanations beyond purely psychological models. You got the Class and James Randi segment that says absolutely none are real. And then you got the John Mack group that says, well, now just a minute here, some of them are. By the late 1990s, mainstream culture treated abductions as a quirky quagmire, fueled by conferences and ballrooms, policed by skeptics with PowerPoint decks, immortalized in pop fiction. Scientific establishments, satisfied psychology covered the bulk of the cases, moved on. Funding dried up. Topic receded from peer-reviewed journals. But for tens of thousands of self-identified abductees, the private struggle continued. Night terrors, relationship strain, ridicule. Support groups sprang up, some led by mental health professionals, others by self-taught experiences or reinforced literal interpretations. Dialogue between the two groups, clinical and experiential, remained brittle. So you have to ask yourself, what significance does this historical skirmish hold for today's unidentified aerial phenomenon inquiry? Every time a Navy pilot submits video of a cube and a spear, skeptics reach for abduction lore as a cautionary tale. Eyewitness testimony is frail, memory pliable, humans wired for pattern over truth. Conversely, experiences cite their stories as proof that officialdom misses what lies outside its model. The boundaries established in the 1970s continue to influence the interpretation of new evidence by journalists and scientists and the general public. And then, of course, playing in and out of all these discussions are Cold War misidentifications, stealth prototypes, classified balloons. That poured even more skepticism on the fire. But keep the abduction debate in view. It taught investigators two hard lessons. First, memory can lie with absolute sincerity. And second, the absence of compelling evidence doesn't erase the personal reality of those who live the story every night. Every UAP researcher still has to balance empathy with rigor. My first Cold War misidentification story comes at 2:04 a.m. on a moonless spring night in 1982. Nevada Highway Patrolman pulls over the shoulder of Route 375, kills his cruiser's lights, and stares up into the sky. Above the empty desert is a perfectly black triangle, its edges glowing faint orange, utterly silent. Officer radios dispatch, I got an unidentified possible aircraft, no strobes, no engine noise, moving due south. His report was filed under UFO, no further action. 14 years later, the U.S. Air Force admitted that same airspace, Groom Lake, better known as Area 51, hosted nightly test flights of the F-117A Nighthawk, world's first operational stealth fighter. That triangle in the sky wasn't an extraterrestrial craft, it was a black budget prototype practicing radar evading maneuvers. And this particular revelation illustrates a pattern that defined the late Cold War UFO landscape. A lot of sightings were, in fact, humans misreading their own secret hardware. Then we got the U-2, Dragon Lady reconnaissance jets that began the confusion in the 1950s. Cruising above 70,000 feet, twice the altitude of commercial jets. U-2 caught sunset long after ground observers saw night. Several wings reflected sunlight, growing from like a slow-moving star. Lower altitudes, commercial pilots looking up spotted the same light, now seemingly streaking at impossible speeds. Radar couldn't tag it because air traffic systems never designed for stratospheric targets. Now we got the SR-71 Blackbird, successor to the U-2. Built out of titanium, the Blackbird flew at Mach 3 plus. That's over 2,000 miles per hour. When exhaust plumes so hot it ionized air surrounding it, creating a luminous corona, ground witnesses reported a long fiery dart vanishing in seconds. And even military trackers misread the signature. Early warning radars briefly painted the Blackbird as a ballistic missile. Every false alarm gave rise to a new UFO story. And on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow when you'll be listening again to Ken Hudnall and the Ken Hudnall Show as we talk about the stealth revolution. Until then, y'all have a great evening.